All right, and with that, we should be live again, guys. So this time we have special guest Jim Hall from Atheist Edge, who we've actually had on before for various other topics, and I've been on his channel. We've been bouncing on each other's channels for the past year now, since we met at Faithless Forum, so that's been kind of neat. He's our special guest on today, and aside from him, we have our usual panel. We have Bionic Dance, we have the Atheist Rationale, and we have Frustrated Atheist. Also, we are 5 minutes late for hopping on, because if you guys expect me to be here on time, then you haven't been watching my channel long enough. Also, I'd like to let you guys know one more thing. So we are currently 23 minutes in. We've rewound by just a little bit because we ended on a malformed Stephen Hawking quote, and we're going to begin with that same Stephen Hawking quote that ended us last time. I'm also very sick today, so if you guys hear some sniffles, or if I'm not talking as much as I normally am, then that would be the reason why, and I apologize for any inconvenience that comes as a result of that. That said, well, go ahead and have everybody introduce themselves, past what I already introduced, and then after they do so, then I'll give us a quick recap of the last two parts that we've gotten through. We'll start with Bionic Dance.
Hey everybody, Bionic Dance. You can call me Kate if you like. Call me Katie and you die. My channel, I spend a lot of time debunking religious videos, both with me and a fair amount of animation. And so you really ought to describe, because you won't be sorry if you do.
All right, and with that, we have our special guest today, Jim Hall. Would you like to introduce yourself, Jim?
How's it going, everyone? I'm Jim Hall, one of three hosts of Atheist Edge. We are a group that is dedicated to building bridges, finding common ground, and having fun in this age of divisive socio-political and religious division. And that's what we do.
Divisive division?
Divisive division.
You really had to pull through the etymology to get those, didn't you?
I couldn't think of a different adjective.
The divisive state of things?
This is one of the this is that time in my entire life I've never seen the world so divided. And what we did a year and a half ago when we started the channel was say the atheist community in particular was just divided due to many factors, but we were trying to pull everyone back together.
Gotcha. With that said, we have the Atheist Rationale, who is a regular on this portion of the channel. How's it going, Sean?
It's going pretty good, man. I'm Sean from the Atheist Rationale. Basically, on my channel, what I do is I like to take some misrepresentations of science, lately Matt Powell here, and go in, debunk, and correct them. I've taken on this new IFB project where I'm using the Byte model to expose this group as the cult that it is. And I'm currently working on a rather interesting video, I'd say, involving a doomsday prophet who thinks that celebrities and their weird stories of sleeping with ghosts is proof of the end times. Tons of crazy stuff going on with that one, and you guys are gonna have a lot of fun if you guys catch it. And yeah, that's me and my channel.
Right. And then we have Russ, who may or may not have a channel at this point. I don't know. How's it going, Russ?
Oh, it's pretty much going slowly as always. But actually, I have been working on videos. I have one that I was working on yesterday until my tablet decided, hey, I'm gonna die on you, so you might as well. And then I've been working on a script for a collab that I'm doing with somebody, and other than that, I've been coming up with scripts and watching Leah Remini's Scientology.
Alrighty.
Other than that, that's it.
Awesome. Well, with that said, we have a recap. This recap is both for people who are joining us new for this video, and this recap is also for Jim, who has not seen this wonderful clusterfuck of a film that we've been reviewing so far. So the film began with a huge appeal to emotion, which anybody who studies debate knows that's automatically going to be fallacious, but begins with a huge appeal to emotion, equivocating the theory of evolution with the root cause of Columbine. Jim, what do you think of that?
You've already piqued my interest.
After After that, we've had probably about six or seven different quote mines in the last 20 minutes where they've pulled quotes that didn't mean what they said, or in some cases, we've looked up some of the quotes and found that they weren't actually spoken by the people who they said spoke them, which is wonderful. It's incredibly consistent. We've also had guest appearances on this movie from Kent Hovind, from Steven Anderson, from... You know what? I really don't need to name anybody else after those two. After those, the standards are pretty much set.
Well, and there's also that one poor atheist they're interviewing who I hate to say isn't doing very well.
Yes, Raging Atheist. They've done, I believe it's Raging Atheist.
Yeah, it's him.
But basically,
It's by
what they've done to him is they've done to him what Ray Comfort does to everybody in all of his interviews, where they cut and mangle and malform everything that he says in the conversation, and they basically just make sure that whatever they get on camera, it's the hms and the hums, the pregnant pauses before he says something, except they usually never show what he says after that. That way it seems like he's been stumped by the great and mighty Matt Powell.
And the only time he actually does say something is when it's something that can be edited to where it looked like he was saying that this is a possibility or something like that, instead of, oh, this is what we know is a fact or something like that. And
yeah, they kind of like malformed a bunch of his stuff together to make it sound like he was saying, well, it wasn't God, it had to have been panspermia that got us all here. And that was their like way of going, aha, see, all atheists believe in aliens instead of the genus.
Who's their target audience?
The target audience for this is definitely themselves.
Yes, and the only non-believers watching this are dweebs like us, and they know it, and so they tailor this. They have no qualms with quote mining. They know they can get away with it.
Well, not to mention, on top of that, we've actually had an instance. If you look at the live feed, when me and Pam had her birthday stream on my channel, look at the first 10 minutes of the live stream itself and look at the chat in that live feed, and you'll actually see that somebody, I think it was actually a sock account, I don't have any proof of it, but I assumed that was the case, hopped in and just said, "Cirrus, why did you lie to me? Matt Powell released this amazing movie called Science Falsely So Called. I've been reconverted to the faith, blah, 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 blah." I'm like 90% certain that's a sock account. But apparently, based on that, I would assume there's some misinformation going around as well around this movie's release. So, yeah, Matt Powell lying. If that's new to anybody, then you're definitely new to this channel.
He just had a a stream with Ben the Baptist, in where he actually said that they're distributing this movie throughout the old IFB as well as throughout the new IFB, and they do sell like tons of DVDs. They market it to their people. It's basically just an indoctrination tool. It's kind of interesting to figure out that, to learn that they're helping the older organization as well, though, as well as their own.
The old organization that was predicated by sex scandals and abuse issues that they've distanced themselves from and made a very hard political stance on distancing themselves from, they would still redistribute these materials to them to help them. So they're not as distant from the old independent fundamental Baptists as they thought they were.
Not very much, no.
The thing is whenever I came across the video where Steven Anderson himself was talking about the issues of the old IFB, he never once brings up any of the scandals, the sex scandals and the abuse and all that stuff. He pretty much doesn't even register that that's even a problem.
You know, sexual abuse just isn't a problem for him, apparently, if we were to go by that.
Jesus.
Or the spiritual relocation, where if like certain female members get raped and get pregnant, sometimes they're shipped off to colleges states away so that their families and stuff aren't shamed. There's real sad stuff going on with that old IFB organization.
Not only are they shipped off to colleges and whatnot, they're just shipped off to other people's houses that the people within the church know who these people are.
Yeah,
it's the church is so adept at sweeping things under the rug when they're inconvenient.
Yeah. Speaking of things that are inconvenient, we've spent almost 10 minutes and haven't even touched this piece of shit movie. So, with all the intro stuff out of the way, we'd like to go ahead and let everybody know that in the first video, we got through 16 minutes of the movie, and then we had to stop. That took an hour and a half. And then the second time when we had R and Raw on, we got through a whole 7 minutes of the movie in an hour's span of time. There was that much wrong. So let's see if we can keep things going with about a good 5 minute, good 5 minutes of the movie this time around. Maybe. All right, and starting off with the misappropriated quotes.
Thermodynamics states that matter cannot be created or destroyed. Stephen Hawking said, and I quote, he said, "Because there are laws, such as gravity, the universe can and will create itself from nothing." That's stupid. That's retarded. Matter cannot be created or destroyed. So by default, their worldview violates the very first law of thermodynamics.
So,
One thing.
Oh my God! Oh, this is gonna suck. This is gonna suck.
How are you feeling, Jim? You agreed to this.
I'm glad I brought some IPAs with me.
Well, and what he doesn't realize, of course, is that they're actually statutes of thermodynamics, not laws. Sorry.
Yeah. First off, is that an actual
trying
quote?
to be funny?
That doesn't even.
It never works.
That was funny, Kate. I'm laughing on the inside. Is that an actual Stephen Hawking quote? It's not. I'm not familiar with it.
I believe that I believe that quote actually is correct, but with that quote, what he was talking about was basically that the universe itself, even if you destroyed everything, because gravity exists, you would still have planets forming from that, and you would still end up having a universe get constructed eventually, the same way that the first one did. Which is, he's not talking about the universe being created at that point. He's talking about the already present matter that's already there, reforming into something else. It has nothing to do with creating something. That's the misappropriation in the quote.
Exactly. That's what I tell people. If someone brings this up to me face to face, I always start with, when was there nothing? That and if they say before the Big Bang, the conversation's over, because that's where we stop.
Because T equals 0 is the Big Bang. The idea of before the Big Bang is nonsensical.
And what was at T equals 0? Everything. So again, exactly. I asked them, when was there nothing?
Yep.
There was never a time when there was nothing.
One of my favorite things about this is, like, he sits there and says the quote, pauses for quite a while, as if, I guess, to hold for effect, and then he's just like, well, that's just stupid because of reasons.
Well, and the best part is he's staring at an audience that doesn't exist. When Steven Anderson does his preaching, you can see the camera pan out to his audience. You can hear amens. You can hear things. When Matt Powell does this, you might at most hear like 5-ish people, so basically his production crew.
Honestly, I think he runs like a youth group or something.
Not to put too fine a point on it, but in this PC culture, I don't know, just out of consideration for others, I tend to stay away from that word retarded. And yeah, I've said that in front of my girls. I got a 17 and 21-year-old, and they are just, they're really good about catching me. And I'm unaware. Usually it's subconscious, but I'll say retarded or, oh man, that's gay. Really, Dad? You know, okay, I need to retailer my language.
Usually when somebody says that, I will just go, yes, it is in fact quite homosexual. And they'll just go, what do you mean? Oh.
Right. Well, that's what I meant. I mean, the context is everything, right? But it's still, if it makes somebody out there feel bad, I'm going to change myself.
I will say
I can't remember the last time I heard someone say, that's so gay. Like, this is the first time in years.
We got to remember, these people don't believe in mental illness or any type of, like, mental disabilities. They just believe in kids that need to get beat more.
Oh, they're Scientologists?
No,
sorry.
No, but they do actually have sermons on why mental illness isn't a thing, why ADHD isn't a thing, why the autism spectrum doesn't exist. You just have to hit your kids harder, and they'll get better.
Yeah, they even have documentaries like throwing all these ideas out there. Sometimes it's demon possession. Even it's crazy, man.
I wonder if there's any mentally ill people in his congregation take offense to him using the word retarded, though.
Probably not, because he spoke it. The genetic fallacy is lost on them.
Well, you know, it's kind of funny. We haven't even gotten to something we haven't covered last week. This bit of footage, we were already there.
Yes.
Yeah.
I wanted to start us out with that because it was that bad. I figured that it deserved Aaron looking at, or no, Aaron didn't even get to look at that part.
No.
It deserved our panel looking at it from before, and it deserved Jim looking at it here. But yeah, no, if anything, I would say that considering that the data defensive version of retarded is less advanced in mental, physical, or social development than is usual for one's age, then as offensive as it might be, I think Matt at least fits the description because he's much less advanced than the world around him.
United States is retarded in the scientific global scientific community right now. That's an actual correct use of the term.
Yes,
because religion has slowed our scientific progress, so we are retarded.
Yeah, well, that's the actual correct usage of that is to slow something. To retard a virus is to slow it.
Yes.
Well, you do know that any sort of new incoming evidence or information seems to bounce right off of Matt Powell, so he seems a little retarded to that kind of stuff.
So you're saying that he's rubber and we're glue.
Well, if we're going to keep bringing up stuff that Matt Powell has done, I mean, I love to bring up the part where I got to talk to him, like in a live chat, and asked him flat out whether or not I should be killed for being a lesbian, whether I should be executed for it, and he would not say yes.
Oh, you talked to him personally?
Oh, yeah,
Yes,
there's
she's
a
talked to him
live
on
chat.
the show.
Dude.
And
I gotta go catch that.
Would not say it. He just because that's a huge part of his platform is that because God says homosexuality is filthy, then the state should be executing gays, and he wouldn't say it to me when I asked him point blank.
No, he's trying to be just like
Steven
Pilate
Anderson.
and wash his hands.
Oh, I was going to say he's just trying to be like
Intellectual
Anderson. With that said, though, we'll go ahead and hit the play button and continue on in this clusterfuck again.
When you listen to that quote, it's pretty obvious that he's saying that he's going to believe what he wants to believe. And
Whoa. Hold on, buddy. Hold on, Mr. Anderson. When we listen to literally anything you say, that's what we hear. Sorry.
This is you're the budding philosopher under the tutelage of the great Steve McRae, Chris, but the word belief has multiple connotations, and I can think of 4 right off the bat. I asked believers what they mean by belief or faith, and 20 years ago they would have told me it's more in line with Hebrews 11:1, where it is knowing something without any evidence. But they've gotten away from that in this day and age of apologetics, and they're more on belief is more of a confidence in things that we can prove. In that case, I always say, why even use the word belief? Confidence works just fine. Well, you don't even need the word belief anymore.
Also, we have Pam making her cameo for a little bit before she comes into work.
What's up, Pam?
Happy birthday, belated.
Jim says, happy birthday.
I'm glad your parents fucked.
And Kate says, I'm glad your parents fucked. All right,
That's
have fun
awesome.
at work.
I'm gonna try not to shoot myself.
And you know what? We are actually with you on that. We feel the exact same way. Trust me.
he didn't want to believe in God. And the Bible talks about people who don't even want to retain God in their knowledge.
Actually, that is incorrect. From everything that I've read up on Stephen Hawking, it's not that he said he didn't want... Okay. It's not that he didn't want to believe in God. It had nothing to do with him wanting or not wanting to believe in God. It had everything to do with a pragmatic view of things and going that he didn't see God as particularly useful or necessary to the overall scope of the cosmos. So he just dropped it.
It's like
As a matter
that
of fact-
conversation between Laplace and Napoleon, where he had come up with this idea of how the universe worked, and Napoleon was like, yes, but you didn't leave room for the creator, and he's like, I had no need of that hypothesis.
You read my mind, Kate. That's exactly what I was thinking.
Yep.
Yeah, and the thing is it was actually, he started off with the belief of God. He started off as a Christian and went on through his scientific knowledge and understanding of how the world works and says there's really no need for said God.
No, and I'm a pragmatist. I agree with that.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I think it'd be awesome if God wasn't real, but if I found evidence that there is such a creature, I'd have to admit that yes, there is a God. I mean, that's something that I would have to do.
Well, I think almost all of us are perfectly fine with that.
I part ways with that statement, but yeah, most atheists.
Well,
Yeah,
I mean,
I'm an anomaly. I would rather there be a vindictive, capricious God of the Old Testament, because then at least, even though there's suffering and pain, some part of us lives on after death, and I don't know. I want some part of us to live on after death. I just don't want anybody to go to hell.
I don't know how that's like not part of what I said though.
Oh.
No, you two are in agreement. She was saying that the idea of a God would be cool, given the baggage.
Oh, I thought you said you wouldn't want there to be a God.
Oh no, I wouldn't, because I've often said that if I discovered that a God exists, I'd go looking for the magic ring or flaming sword that would kill the fucker, because he's not a nice guy.
Yeah, at that point,
that's where we part ways, because I would drop to my knees and start worshiping immediately.
You know,
really?
I think me and Kate are on the same page. If we're dealing with a God, and we're dealing with the God of the Old Testament, and he does happen to be real, then you've changed my position from atheist to mesotheist. That's all you've effectively done for me.
Same here. I really, if I were to have found the evidence that God does of the Bible exists right now, I would definitely not. I would acknowledge that he does indeed exist, but I could not worship him.
Like, don't get me wrong. Eventually, you might get me to a point where I might worship this God. But if you're speaking to me right now, the Cirrus that's here on camera right now, this one would become a mesotheist. Pretty much instantaneously. I wouldn't, and it's mainly because you couldn't stop me from believing that this is an evil, capricious dictator at that point, because that's what I believe currently. You would need a few years to change my mind on that.
Yeah.
I think I'm with Bionic. I want to find that flaming sword.
That's clearly what these people are. They don't want to retain God in their knowledge, and so they'd rather believe anything except to believe in God. So they have to come up with some explanation for how
they have Lawrence Krauss there
that excludes the God of the Bible. So they come up with the Big Bang, evolution. But
wait, they come up with the Big Bang and evolution. So does he not realize that both of those ideas stemmed from theism? The Big Bang stemmed from a Catholic bishop, and evolution, everybody who was a proponent of it during the time was still theistic. This is not an atheistic idea, you dumb shit.
Christians should be pumping their fist at the idea of a Big Bang theory.
It means you've got a beginning.
Yes,
it's a point.
And the projection is so thick, too. I mean, they can look at things like the Big Bang or evolution that they don't like, and they make up anything they can to deny it.
As opposed to just accepting that this is a point in your... Like for instance, I've noticed that the smartest Christians... The smartest ones don't deny science. You've got people like Hugh Ross. You've got people like Dr. Syke Gart. You have these people who don't have to comport reality to their beliefs to keep their beliefs. They accept reality and shape their beliefs around it, which is the way you should go about things. You take the reality you live in, and your beliefs are formed from that. You don't have a belief and then make everything conform to it.
I mean, I don't have a lot of respect, at least on this aspect of people when they are believers, but the ones I can have the most respect for would be deists, where it's like, okay, God set everything into motion, then buggered off, and now things are just going as they are. With that, I'd be like, well, I still think that's like kind of douchey, but at least it's not like this God who's constantly puppet stringing us along.
Yes, although there is a quote that I actually I like. It's from Strawson. You can find it in the Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy. It is an insult to God to believe in God, because on one hand, it is to suppose that he has perpetrated acts of incalculable cruelty. On the other hand, it is to suppose that he has perversely given his human creatures an intellect that would lead them to deny his existence.
You mentioned Hugh Ross. We've had him on the show, and I've got mad respect for him. Someone who is intellectually honest and really believes what they're saying, and they're not a charlatan, you get points with me. Unlike, the Joel Osteens and the Benny Hinns and the Kenneth Copelands, There's
where
a
they,
big
where they comport their narrative to who they're speaking to.
Well, you know that they're just fleecing. You can tell. You can see it in their eyes. There's a big difference between the two.
They're trying to get donations. They're trying to get sponsors. They're trying to get people on their side. We've even got Joel Osteen several times who've said that, look, how can I be a blessing to people if I'm not blessed myself? Like, dude.
Obvious.
Well, don't even get me started on the definition of blessing.
I really can't stand, and I've lived around Joel Osteen my entire life, and I really cannot stand the guy because of this whole entire fake demeanor of happiness that he always has. That damn good and well it's all a facade.
If somebody is smiling all the time, just no.
Yeah. He's over here and when people bring up, what about this here and this there? He's like, I just don't look at this stuff. Because it's not a good thing, so I'm just not going to look at it. And
well, it's like you've got people, like I was on Steve McRae's channel recently talking to a guy named Brojo, and this is probably the only time he's going to come up in this conversation. Anybody who watched that conversation, it basically got to the point where I said, okay, so do you think that the slaughter of children is right? And he basically came up with the excuse of it depends, because he knew that I was leading that to the idea of the flood killing innocent children. And I'm just like, dude, if my question to you is slaughtering children wrong, and your response is it depends, then you and I are on completely different moral wavelengths.
Divine command theory.
Which is still ethical subjectivism. Oh my fucking god, it's in several papers. It's not hard.
What it really comes down to is that they don't love the Lord. And the scariest thing to them is that the Lord would actually be the creator. So anything's better than that. If we have to believe in something as crazy as spontaneous generation or...
No! Spontaneous generation is...
frightening.
And spontaneous generation is not something that anybody believes in. That's been disproved. That was the idea that maggots would form on rotting meat. And they don't. They're already there. They grow. They're not spontaneously born.
And he's speaking for all of us. There's at least 1/5 of this panel that welcomes the idea of maybe there being something that lives on after death, even if it means an intelligent, capricious deity.
Yeah, well, the invention of the microscope disproved so much of what religion has claimed about where life comes from. And it's just, I don't know, it's crazy what they insist is still so.
It's just
not even where life came from, but also all these different diseases that were supernatural causes.
Yeah,
it's
not to mention like all those things, like the ways they thought you could cure stuff, where it's like, we'll cure the plague by killing black cats. Yeah, that worked real well.
Or if we bleed you out real quick, we'll make sure that you get rid of a common cold. Like, no, that's like, I'm sorry, George Washington. It was not a good idea for you to go out that way.
Yeah.
Their fancy word for it, abiogenesis.
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 I've actually got 2 biogenesises.
Oh my god, abiogenesis.
I have 2 biogenesis as well, because there's the first Genesis in the Bible, and I'm sure there's a second one somewhere in this book.
I thought you were going to pull a Sega Genesis out of your bookcase.
I wish I could have, because I'm actually a huge fan of Sonic. But I don't have
I actually have a Sega Genesis. I have a Sega Genesis here.
Oh,
lucky.
Dude.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure that's the only time you ever hear the word abiogenesis from them. The fact that they push this spontaneous generation at the forefront is kind of telling. If you do get that one church member that decides to Google what they're saying, the first thing that they're going to get is that fucking maggots growing on cheese.
They're going to get the disproved thing, and they'll be like, "My pastor was right."
Exactly.
As opposed to if they look up abiogenesis, where they'll find, oh no, the jury is still out on abiogenesis.
And
as stupid and full. Sorry, dude. As stupid and full of misinformation as this movie is, it's it's very strategically choreographed in a way that like strengthens the indoctrination these people have to go through.
And forget that they constantly conflate abiogenesis with natural selection.
Yeah, one of those is the jury's not out on.
Yeah, what they want to do with, especially with abiogenesis and spontaneous creation, is to get their audience, their target audience, which is the same people who believe the things that they believe, to keep on believing that the two are one and the same. And so they'll throw in abiogenesis, the word, every now and then, but it's because it means the same thing as spontaneous creation in their eyes.
Spontaneous generation.
Yeah.
Spontaneous creation is what they believe in.
Yeah, sorry. The other one.
They'll do it because anything to reject the God of the Bible, you have them at hello. If you teach that there's no creator, they don't want to retain the creator in their knowledge. So
haven't we
they're
seen
willing
this
to
clip like 3 times?
Swallow a camel.
He knows what we want better than we do, apparently, even though you've got Jim here who's like, no, if you give me evidence of the God, I want him there because it means I don't die.
Because they actually
even if it's something I don't want. Yeah.
They're willingly ignorant.
I tried to mute the mic, but the Yeti's fucking dumb about that, apparently.
There's 1,000 million different possibilities about how life got.
Okay. I love when they say things like this, professing themselves to be wise, they became fools and all that stuff. But I love to point out, was it Matthew 5:22, where Jesus himself says that if you call someone a fool, you're in danger of hellfire. I love it.
Thank you. I've used that. I've used that on a protest squad of abortion protesters.
I mean,
that shuts their ass up.
Our minds are in such similar places.
Dude, I mean, it's just like how when you've got somebody who says, "No, you have to love the Lord." I'm like, okay, so should you fear the Lord? Yes. Okay, well, cool. Why does this other passage? I think it's in Ephesians where it's just like there is no love and fear. I'm like, okay, so which is it? Which of these is it? Also, I'm going to show this is an older joke now. But it still should work. Let me see if I can. Oh no, that's the wrong button. That's the wrong button. The joke's going to be played out by the time I actually get it to work. Okay, so if anybody can see that thing there,
no,
I made a joke a while back. It should be hard to see, but there should be a little light that you can barely make out that's on there.
No.
I'd have to turn a light off. Okay, well, fair enough. The joke is.
See the light that the picture
okay.
of you is
Can you tell what this is now?
Thanks. I have retina cancer now.
You already have retina cancer. We're watching a Matt Powell movie. The difference between
there's your soundbite.
The difference between retina cancer and the Matt Powell movie here is the cancer will at least grow on you.
Well, dark humor is like a child with cancer. It never gets old.
The joke was that this is a projector, and it's the best way I have to show what they're doing right now. I made the joke last time that I actually had a projector, but I didn't show the freaking projector.
On this planet could have been terraformed by aliens. I think I'm an offshoot of the universe. We're all offshoots of the Big Bang. The universe shoots us out. The universe has a mind of its own, and it creates life. It creates galaxies. It creates individual systems for life to.
You see what they're doing here, where they're like just taking the shit that he says and making it sound like a giant conspiracy.
And it like they're trying to make us think that this is every atheist position.
That's not even an atheist. That's a new age crystal rubbing, granola eating, Evian drinking. That's he may or may not even be an atheist. That is so departed from our viewpoints.
I mean, I'm watching the guy and thinking, you do not represent me. I don't want you in this film because you make me look bad.
Huge straw man.
Yep.
Yeah.
To expand, it could be a number of things.
Since when do you see a big bang or an explosion creating anything?
The Big Bang was not an explosion. It was an expansion. Holy fuck.
Thank you.
I'm so tired of having to say that.
Yes.
Have you ever observed that?
I'm not an expert on explosions. See.
Done.
Chris. Okay, so welcome back to Cyrus the Skeptic. I'm the new host. And there he is.
Died.
Okay.
Oh, nope, he's back.
Resurrection. Oh my god. I wanted so bad not to return.
You can say that there's design in everything. I'm not going to disagree with that. The universe could have designed itself. Maybe we came from the stars. There's a theory.
Okay, hold on. See, this is one thing where I need other language, because design sounds like it's done intentionally, and it
doesn't always have to be.
But we need another way to separate the two ideas with different words. We really do.
The universe is so
it's a given.
Design and have an adjective that separates them, so we still use design and separate them with adjectives.
You could just say the appearance of design, and then it's fine. Then it's fine.
Okay, sure.
But they won't, like, the appearance of design is anything that conforms to the Fibonacci sequence, basically, and most things do. Have
you ever seen a snowflake? Holy shit!
Yeah.
If you didn't know better, you would say someone crafted that with an X-Acto knife. You know?
I've seen a snowflake many times. They're all over the internet.
Oh shit!
We came from the stars, and we just gave away all of our technology. We didn't want it no more, and we started over, and yet here we are again.
But that takes faith. That takes irrational faith to believe that.
No,
that takes silly faith.
It takes an imagination to consider it.
Oh my!
I need another IPA. Be right back.
I don't drink, and I want to.
Yeah.
Too perfect for that.
The thing is I either want to drink myself to death or kill myself with my shotgun. And thank goodness I have both, so I'm just gonna go with the beer that I have in the fridge.
You're just gonna go with both.
I'm gonna go with both.
Matt Powell, and the way, I don't know if it's what he's saying or if it's the way it's deliberately cut sometimes, but this conversation that they're flashing back to repeatedly here, I don't want to live on this planet anymore, and if that means I have to asphyxiate in the atmosphere, then fucking so be it at this point.
Yes, it's like, I mean, again, aliens, I will literally pay you to abduct me.
Like, please. If I can't communicate with anybody, get no video games anymore, that's fine. There are other monkeys on this rock that make me want to leave.
Oh, and just to clarify, I'm not saying I think that aliens, Area 51, all of that shit actually happens. I just think it's the coolest. Like, I love the fiction. I love the movies. Just so you know, I'm not nuts.
The science fiction is nice. I would also say
it's an idea, not a real thing.
Gur of Omicron Persei 8, please come and kill us all.
I'll be honest, when it comes to aliens, I'm willing to accept them as a statistical probability. With how big the universe is, the idea that only one planet in a Goldilocks zone begot some kind of life,
that's why I specified Area 51, all of the conspiracy, anal probing aliens. That's why I specified them.
Well, one of the funniest things about Area 51, though, is the fact that you have these people who literally they saw what happened, and they have pictures of the pieces of metal of what, that doesn't look anywhere near a spacecraft. And so the government came and looked at it and was like, oh, well, let's just take this away because, we need to. And people are like, oh my God, it's
your internet,
of a spaceship.
Your internet cut out, Russ, a lot.
Yeah, my thing's pretty crappy.
Anyway, not to drag us way off topic, but I figured I ought to clarify.
Oh, it's perfectly fine. Although I will say this, one last thing on the topic. Do you think maybe the reason Matt Powell keeps on referencing back to this alien thing is that he has a fascination with anal probing?
That might be.
Well, I have to admit that whenever there's someone who's religious and homophobic, we always assume that they're just covering up being gay themselves, that they're flipping out about it and they don't want anyone to think so. That is statistically not probable. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of them out there, but I don't think we can accuse every last one of them of, oh, you're actually gay.
There is a direct proportionality to the amount of times you bring it up to the probability of you being it. However,
Well, maybe I'm just like, as a member of the LGBT community,
You just
saying,
don't
I
want
don't
them.
you-
You
yeah, I
don't
don't want
want
you
them.
on board with me. You're not on my side, okay?
I mean, if it makes you feel better, I used to be as homophobic as Matt Powell, and I'm not LGBTQ, so technically you got your wish. It's agitating when I see somebody who's 22 years old acting like me when I was 8. It hurts.
Chris, you and I are not appealing to either sex, so
It's true. It's true.
Just
Bit of a spoiler. He's gonna compare for his equivocation of like cosmic evolution and all that kind of stuff to Star Wars later on. So
Oh, jeepers.
there's a reason why he's bringing all this up.
Oh boy.
He's setting up a rather hilarious straw man.
This does bring up a point though, Jim. Would you say then that me and you are the best argument against the incels arguments?
See, you still call them incels? Oh, we've had this debate already.
We
anyway.
have.
This is a total tangent. Because to be celibate is to be
Not
abstaining
married.
from marriage. Chastity, chaste. That's abstaining from sex. So they should be called inchas.
They should
Instead
be
of
called
incels.
inches, but they'll blame their lack of inches on them not getting laid.
The lack of inches.
Yes, that's probably why.
There's
they
a
stay
joke
away
in there
from it.
somewhere too.
Yeah, it's a penis
All right.
joke. It just doesn't.
We
measure
are
up.
way off. We're off the rails now.
We are.
Yeah.
We just sit on the quote.
Love the ominous music.
These people have watched Zeitgeist.
Oh boy.
Oh. Let's see if
All
this
over the
argument
world,
holds water.
petrified trees are found standing up, running through multiple layers. Now, I taught earth science for 15 years, and I've...
No, the fuck you didn't.
Can someone explain polystrate trees to me once and for all? We don't have R and Raw here, but I've never heard anyone effectively explain polystrate trees to me.
The polystrate trees thing is that when there's volcanic ash that settles, it petrifies a certain area of a tree, but the other areas of the tree are not still petrified. They petrify at different lengths.
It's usually a vertical or semi-vertical tree in multiple layers of earth that are set down over eons. I know there's got to be an explanation because I know our explanation has to be
First
correct,
off,
but it does blow my mind.
We see examples of this happening actually throughout Yellowstone currently right now. The whole Polystrate Fossil thing, basically what happens is you were saying, you have either your mudslides or your ash flows and all of that kind of stuff. They bury the bottoms of these trees. And sometimes it happens very rapidly over the course of just a couple thousand years. You'll get tons of layers. And these trees are very tall, are they not? If the bottom of the trees get a couple of layers on them, usually they continue to grow. And then the roots hold them straight and tall. The newly formed layers that are forming around the, they already formed, trunk wood right there.
Oh,
helps
so
keep
the trees are still alive when the first layer set down on them?
Yeah, the first layer sets down and they just reroot. That's basically
So
what
they
happens.
continue to grow for thousands of years, and then when they finally die off, the bottom of the tree is petrified, and that's why you have polystrate fossils.
So you've got the tree that's dated at different times as you go up because it's literally being petrified at different points.
Well, the tree
Exactly.
itself is not dated at different times. It's the layers of sediment that it's in
Yes.
that are dated at different times.
There's also a phenomenon called regeneration, which even if parts of the tree dies, the tops of it can continue to live on and continue to grow. So they're skipping a lot of details here, and then of course they're going to throw the flood at you like that's a real
I know
thing.
I know it's all in talkorigins.org. I don't know why I'm plugging that, but I just too lazy to read it so far.
I mean, there's an
All I've
entire
gotta
section
say-
just on the Wikipedia page on volcanic deposits and deltaic deposits.
All I've got to say is that's capital D dumb.
It's stupid. It's dumb. It's a dumb religion.
Good. That's a good impression.
Aaron's impression is way better than mine, but at least I can say water.
You're in a room full of earth science and biology books here in my library.
I should say, though, don't quote me completely. Go and research for yourself. I could have one or two details wrong.
What's up?
Just the stuff I was saying earlier. Don't quote me on it. I might have a detail or two wrong.
None of us are experts. None of us are experts. Yeah. But the internet is a wonderfully vast place. You can look things up, and please make sure it's sourced properly.
Talk Origins is way more definitive and authoritative than Wikipedia.
Yes.
I'd go to talkorigins.org. I haven't done it yet, but I know for a fact there is a huge section on polystrate trees on there.
Can I just say that the deposit he's looking at right there looks like a giant penis? I don't know why that came to my mind.
It's the penis of the behemoth.
Oh boy. And its tail waved like a cedar.
Nephilim dick.
A tree's not going to stand there for thousands of years waiting for more layers to form around it. The tree's going to rot and fall over.
No.
In a couple of years. We got dead trees on our property. They stand for a couple of years and they fall down. But yet here we
probably different trees.
Oh, well, you see here, I have this anecdote, and this anecdote shows that everything works the same way as the anecdote does. The entire world is as dumb as me.
The funny thing is, he sits there and says, oh, yeah, we have these trees standing. Oh, are they constantly being... Are layers of sediment constantly being deposited on top of these trees? And then they're falling on?
Really, honestly, that whole subject blows my mind. I need an expert to explain that to me.
I believe Aaron Ra actually has a video on it somewhere.
Yeah, I think he does.
And so does Dark Matter 2525.
Someone in the live chat linked that shit right now.
Oh, we got 92 viewers. Somebody probably will.
I actually have
95.
Can do that.
My Streamlabs must be not quite up to date, which makes sense.
All over the world, thousands of examples of petrified trees in the vertical position running through many layers of strata. They're called poly, which means many, polystrata fossils.
Do you actually believe that tree stood there for millions and millions of years while the sun beat down on it for millions of years while the rock layers...
Does he not realize that the sun beating down on a tree doesn't mean as much as the sun beating down on us, since to us the sun is cancer and vitamin D, and to the tree the sun is food?
No, he's missing the point.
And I have to say, to me, that looks more like a carrot.
It really does. Evolution as taught by Bugs Bunny.
Collected around it. Do you believe that? How do you suppose that got there, fossilized?
I'm not gonna pretend to know. Of course, I've seen arguments about this before. I know a lot of people are gonna argue, well, how did it get into all these different layers? I'm not sure.
It's just all the stumbling, all the bumbling, all the not knowing the answer. The correct answer and the honest answer is just I don't know. And if they just caught I don't know, that's fine. But they want to catch all the stumbling and the bumbling, so it looks like all atheists stumble and bumble around this issue. Even though Sean is a wonderful example of one that doesn't.
Well, I stumble and bumble around this one too.
Yeah, but you're also drinking. You're expected to.
I'm even sober. I'm glad they didn't get me on camera for this, because I would have nothing right now. I even took a note. See, learn polystrate trees.
I have a feeling we've had this conversation months before.
I don't know.
I'm fairly certain the polystrate trees things came up in a conversation that me and you were a part of at one point. Fairly certain it did.
I linked Holder 54. That's who it was who did the polystrat. I just linked the video to that.
Oh, I see it. Yeah.
What would a worldwide flood do to planet Earth?
Destroy it.
It would deposit thousands of feet of sediments containing billions of dead things, which is exactly what we find. Fossils exist all over the world.
Yeah, never mind that. Like, people do calculations, and the amount of rain would have to happen, like to flood the earth like that. The sheer impact would destroy so much.
Sean,
I'm having this conversation as we speak on a Facebook page, and one of the arguments posed is that there's enough water locked in the Earth's surface to have come up in geysers to have done it.
Yeah, I believe it's Kent Hovind who actually has this crazy theory where instead of the rain, like it says in the Bible, there's supposedly this meteor that broke through the
ice wall wall around the world.
Broke through the firmament and then like hit one of the poles and then broke out all the water, and that's how you got the floods.
He's had another theory. He's had another theory where the entire Earth was surrounded by a sheet of ice at one point that just melted and came down. He's also said that
theory. Oh, go ahead.
He's also said that it comes from the great deep below. It just depends on what slide he's looking on at the time.
Yeah, there was the debate with King Crocodile. He had his whole entire idea of the ice canopy that was there that melted.
I hate this rhetoric when somebody says, what would we expect to find if a global flood happened? Okay, well, what we would expect to find is that all life on Earth would cease because the ecosystems of literally every living thing on Earth would be disrupted past the point of being able to repair itself, especially if it lasted for a year, 40 days and 40 nights of raining plus a year of sitting, all ecosystems would be destroyed. And he's like, no, it should leave lots of dead things everywhere. And like, yeah, and there should be nothing left.
Well, the part that always knocks me out is if they were right about like animals 2 by 2, the amount of genetic damage from all that incest to repopulate the Earth, like life would be so horrific.
Everything would be like cheetahs. Everything would be like the cheetahs.
I didn't even think of that.
And also, like, I talked to a guy. If anyone's in San Diego or the area, I help staff an atheism booth in Balboa Park every Saturday. And there's also a Christian booth there. Well, actually, sometimes there's several. But there's this one in particular where I asked a guy about Adam and Eve's children. And he just flat out said, yes, there was a lot of incest. All of humanity comes from incest.
Does he not know what a... Hold on a second. I'm just going to grab some hot sauce here for a minute.
Into your eyes?
No, but that's a good idea. I need to do that. However, what do you call this part right here?
Empty?
Bottleneck.
It's a bottleneck.
Oh, okay.
And what happens when you have all of that incest? You get a genetic this thing.
Anyway, the long and short of this Facebook conversation ended with the atheists providing overwhelming evidence to the contrary, and we painted them into a corner, and their last recourse was just to cling to this futile idea of a global flood, even though it was proven, it was just laid out there for them. But the thing about believers is you can't give any ground. If you give up the ground that the flood didn't happen, then the dominoes fall in their mind, and then before you know it, now I'm questioning the resurrection. They can't give up any ground.
Which is dishonest as hell, because you can give up ground as long as you're willing to comport your worldview to reality and just go, look, everything that science shows happened. It didn't make Jesus suddenly not happen. Jesus could be working off of the same misinformation that we're working with now.
And every time you point out to someone, like, here's something that's in the Bible that clearly science has shown isn't so, well, that one's a metaphor. We didn't realize it until now, but that one's just metaphorical. Every time.
And it's stupid because what happens is you have historians who say, and this is not to knock on anybody who is a biblical historian, but the Bible does contain parable, it contains poetry, it contains rhetoric, it contains sophistry, and it contains historic accounts. It contains those things plus more. And whenever you're reading any passage, you have to determine which of these things is this passage. Is it sophistry? Because Jesus engaged in sophistry a few times, especially with the Pharisees. Is it a historic account, like a census that didn't happen? Is it a parable, like we know that Moses had to be, because historians don't agree on Moses existing at all now? Or like with Noah, obviously, that would have to be metaphor, it'd have to be that. We know that... Who is knocking on their mic?
Is someone bapping?
That was probably what?
That was probably me. I was tapping. Sorry.
Tapping on the sound device that we can all hear through.
Yeah, my bad. Sorry.
It's all right. Everybody makes mistakes. My parents made me. But fact of the matter is, you're dealing with all these things, and historians would be the ones that would be able to best determine which category any particular passage falls in. It's how we know that there are several of Paul's letters that were faked, because none of the actual writing syncs up with the writings that we can guarantee are attributed to Paul. There are other writings that don't sync up with his writing style, and we're able to determine that certain letters are not true because of that. It's the same way we can tell that certain things are parable, that certain things are sophistry, etc., etc. Sometimes there's even a little bit of sarcasm you have to parse through. So all these things exist in there. The thing that determines what is metaphor and what is not that we found something and now that's incorrect. It would have always been that way. And if the historians change if the historians that are researching it dishonestly change it from they really thought this happened to we know that as metaphor now, there's the dishonesty, and there's where we start to hold issue. But if they go, they thought this happened, but they were misinformed. Like, there were a lot of cultures that had not a global flood sometimes, but flood stories that are all somewhat-ish in the same 1,000-year span. Mm-hmm. If all these people think that that's the case, that's all that's necessary for them to write it down. It doesn't necessarily mean that they knew what the fuck was going on, but they think the people who believe the Bible is true in all ways, shapes, and forms seem to think that these people knew that all this was happening, and it's a historical account at all times.
That's the thing, is like I'm not even necessarily talking about like biblical scholars, for example. I've had people ask me why in my videos I'm usually addressing the man on the street type, and that's usually because they're the ones I most want to reach. I mean, scholars or scholars, whatever, I don't care. But the thing is that when they say that, oh, that's just a metaphor, they're kind of doing what Steven Anderson was accusing atheists of doing, is that they're clinging as hard as they can to what they believe. And if something starts to show it not so, they find a way to rationalize it so they can still be believers.
This part of the Bible must still be true, just only metaphorically, because if it doesn't, then my worldview collapses. Is basically what it comes down to.
Including the top of Mount Everest.
One of the great proofs of the worldwide flood is the fact that we found fossilized seashells.
No, the fossil. Do you not know what tectonic plates are, you dumb shit?
Yeah, but their explanation is that they could have been deposited there because the waters went up that high, and when the waters receded, the shells ended up on the top of Everest.
Mountains begin on the seafloor. They then go up. Holy
if they're floating around on the water, do you see their I'm just playing devil's advocate here, God's advocate.
Well, their explanation only works with the 6,000-year-old Earth.
Yeah, unfortunately, Raging Atheist doesn't really help this situation either, because his explanation for how the shells got on top of Mount Everest is animals brought them there, when we know plate tectonics.
Well, I mean, that's the thing, though. There is no such thing as plate tectonics, though. Serving platter tectonics, however. Saucer tectonics, bowl tectonics, but not plate tectonics.
Oh, God.
Sorry, I'll just be over here.
We're at the point.
Right?
We're
not streaming, we're rivering.
We're not streaming, we're rivering. It's I think this is one of the reasons why Raging Atheist is the premier person in this video, because he seems to be either ill-informed, misinformed, or fully malformed. One of the three, or a combination of those.
Chris, you are
just he needs to do a little more.
Oh, go ahead.
I was just saying, I'm sure his heart's in the right place. He just needs to do a little more research.
I agree. And then Jim.
I have to wonder if they had another atheist that they interviewed who knew their shit, and they're
they just decided, nah.
Yeah.
Matt Powell first had to rule out which ones weren't, LGBT first.
Yeah, and then Jim, you were saying something.
I've done. We're in the middle of our second book critique. The first one was Holly Ordway from Houston Baptist University. I know for a fact that she has seen our critique. She hasn't responded to it. The second one is Jay Warner Wallace. We're in the middle of that. I also know for a fact he's seen it and has yet to respond to it. I'm just wondering if you think if Matt Powell has gotten, you are light years more prominent than my channel now. There's almost no doubt that he's gotten wind of this critique that we're doing.
Oh, I know he has, because I know that Guzman has been watching, and Guzman is his little boy toy.
They're taught to ignore the evidence. They're literally indoctrinated to.
Now, any one of you four, if the same were to be happening to you, someone did a critique of my first book, and the word count of that critique was longer than the word count of my book, and I responded to it until he started getting nasty and hostile, and then I disengaged. But at least I responded. Don't you think that's the intellectually honest position to at least address the fact that we're making some good goddamn points here, aren't we?
It depends. So I think that in our case we're making good points, but when you, for instance, if anybody here, I'm not going to say his name because I'm tired of saying his name on my channel, but he's a particular Twitter user and YouTube commenter who doesn't have any content of his own, doesn't have a platform of his own, but every time you mention something negative about the Shroud of Turin, he's there. Most of us know who it is. Starts with an E and ends with a goddamn it's him again. So when you have somebody like that and they're responding to all of your points, sometimes it's not worth it if the person is either so far below, where like if Kent Hovind addressed me, the only reason that I would say anything about it is because he himself is a prolific figure. But if he was like a 50 sub channel with no influence at all, and he had all of these horrible views, the only thing I would be doing is just giving him more platform at that point.
Good point.
I mean, I have to admit, there's a guy that I'm about to give a second response to, just because his response to me was so freaking wrong. But he's got like I don't know, 20 times fewer subscribers than I do. And I probably shouldn't be giving him this fame, but what you gonna do?
Yeah, sometimes I think me and Jim both have come to the idea that there's a sweet middle ground where the best way to expose a bad idea is the light of day.
Sunlight is the best disinfectant.
So I can say that there is a point where it's like, you already have, like with Matt Powell, the YouTube video or the movie that we're looking at, it's already been distributed to thousands of people. It's got 14,000 views on YouTube, maybe a little more. It's not huge by YouTube standards, but it's still decently big, where anything we're doing here is not the same as just getting it out to more people, especially since they'd have to watch, at this point, maybe like 12 hours of our critique to get through his 1 hour of movie.
Up on the very peak of Mount Everest, which means that Mount Everest would have had to been covered with water. It's a simple fact, but it's a true one, and scientists for many years have been trying to figure out how these fossilized seashells got all the way up to the top of Mount Everest.
Look at the imagery. Look at the imagery. Scientists have been trying to figure this out. It's the Bible.
I mean, I don't know if he keeps going on to say what I think he's going to say, but I think that his whole point is they're trying to figure it out so they don't have to believe the Bible.
There are Christian scientists who don't believe in the flood, you dumb shit.
Oh, and one of my favorite things that Aaron has ever said was the fact whenever he went to historical geology class, the teacher, who was a Christian, said, if you believe the Bible, if you believe in the Noahic flood today, in a week you won't.
Yeah. That's called honesty.
Yeah.
Now, if you read the Bible, it's very clear that the Bible says that there was once a flood, and that the flood covered the entire earth.
The entire world was not flooded. Land was showing.
But this was found in the top of the Grand Canyon.
There's really no excuse for being ignorant of the flood.
I wonder what
when you
showed.
Can I say something? I just think it's
he looks like he's holding in a fart. That's just...
Oh, God!
Okay, Russ. What is it, Russ?
I was just going to say, I think it's hilarious that Powell, whenever he was saying they found these on top of on Mount Everest, his look was like he's just so exacerbated with this already. He's just like, well, look, here it is.
These were on Mount Everest, dude. They were on Mount Everest. They were the hugest evidence for the Bible.
This was the
Here's
most
what we do.
thrilling thing ever.
Here's what they do. They take just one of those mollusks on top of K2 or Mount Everest, and you argon potassium date it. We don't use
carbon for shit like that.
We don't use carbon 14 or carbon 12 anymore. You do an argon potassium dating of that mollusk, and then you can set it to where that thing died way before that mountain was ever a mountain. It was totally underwater.
But one thing that kind of bugged me about what Raging Atheist said is he's like, well, there were bits poking up out of the water, like he was granting the flood happening, but the whole earth wasn't covered. Gosh, no.
The whole earth is currently covered in water, technically.
Well, but you know what I'm getting at here.
not the way that they're trying to ascribe. It's just like okay, who here has played any Legend of Zelda games before?
Yep.
Okay, who here has played the Wind Waker?
Nope.
The Wind Waker.
That's one I didn't play.
Okay, so the story of the Wind Waker is basically that the gods flooded the earth because they couldn't stop Ganondorf from killing everybody. So they killed everybody with a giant flood, and the mountaintops became islands, and you only go to the mountaintops in that game. I want to take a copy of that game and just smack Steven Anderson across the face with it and go, "This video game is not reality. Stop!"
Can I do one tangent?
Sure. Can you do a cosign as well?
If you guys have never seen Legend of Neil, it's an internet series, and it's about a guy who his girlfriend breaks up with him, and he loses his job, and he goes and plays Legend of Zelda, and he masturbates by autoerotically asphyxiating himself with the Nintendo cord. And he passes out, and he wakes up in Zelda in the actual video game, and it's him going through the adventures as if everyone thinks he's Link, the main character. It's brilliant.
You reminded me of something, and I cannot for the life of me remember where it's from. There was something called Neil the Orc Barbarian. What the hell is that from? Oh, that is it. Okay.
That's it. Yeah. Neil, the Legend of Neil is the guy who jerks off and ends up in the Zelda game. And then there's
right after
he interacts with the orcs. Yeah.
Right after you talked about the auto asphyxiation masturbation, Shannon Q in the chat just goes, "That's how I do it."
See, you left out the word orc, and that's why I didn't recognize it. But okay, cool. I've heard of it.
It's got a lot of big names in it too. It's a good series.
I'll have to watch it.
You have all kinds of evidence for it in the natural world, and of course you have the ancient witness of the Bible telling you of the
ancient witness. The ancient witness of the Bible. Wait a minute. I wasn't aware that the Bible was a thinking, breathing agent. When did that happen?
Now he looks like he's surprised that the fart turned out to be a shit.
You remember that video I sent you guys just a couple of days ago? The new IFB people think the Bible is literally God. So
yes,
it's not so far as a stretch.
It's not a far stretch. They view the book as
the words are literally God.
Where is my Bible?
According to them.
I have heard people say that like God is the word, or Jesus is the word, or one of them's the word of God, or some shit. I've heard that one before.
Yeah, but Jesus is so. If anything, the words of Jesus would be the words of the Lord. I could grant them that. If I grant them that their religion is real, then sure, the words of Jesus are the words of the Lord. Sure, but that doesn't make the Bible that. It doesn't. The Bible does not become an agent. And now I have this weird image of a Bible asphyxiating itself with a Nintendo cord for some reason. Whatever gets the Bible off, I guess.
Not only that, but other cultures and other religious texts make reference to the flood.
So you're granting them all validity too? Are they all valid too?
Well, I mean, I've heard people say like, yes, there's other religions, but ours has the truth. I think that was in the movie Jesus Camp.
So the first flood story came from what? The Epic of Gilgamesh, right? ancient Mesopotamian.
No, that's
know?
it came from that, and before that there were two others: the Enuma Elish, and there's one before that even.
All right. Well,
the plagiarism runs deep.
Yes.
It's all meme theory. You guys know what meme theory is, right?
Yes.
Sure.
Meme, by the way, was coined way before the internet was even a thing.
Yeah, Dawkins is very upset about that.
It's just ideas getting like transformed and put into fucking different uses. And those flood stories came thousands of years before it, just happened to be past that 6,000 year mark, by the way. And then Judaism picked it up later.
So are you saying then that so the original memes, the original flood memes are Reddit, and then Judaism is 9gag, and then Young Earth creationism is Facebook?
Exactly. That's the perfect representation.
One thing, like, you guys know that I do like 3D CGI and all that stuff. I think I'm gonna create a character named Gilga so that I can have a Gilgamesh.
Nice.
Legend, as people would call it, or the flood myth, is universal to all religions because it actually happened.
It's not universal to all religions.
Nope.
It is.
Like the Chinese, it was more of a local flood. There's several different within the Native Americans that were both global and local floods that had occurred.
Wellington Smith says that no, Young Earth creation is 4chan. Sorry, no, that would be the Quran. That'd be the Quran's version of the flood. Would be 4chan.
Get this, some of the oh, go ahead, Kate.
Well, now he kind of is looking around like, oh God, is anyone going to notice I crap my pants?
Are you just going to screen cap these?
Some of the detractors on this current discussion I'm having say that the actual Mosaic flood was a local. And then my question was, so why the need to put two animals on the boat to retain their genetic code? And just fucking crickets and tumbleweeds right after that. Because if it's a local flood, A, it's not miraculous. B, there's no need to put any animals on it.
Well, also, I mean, if God created all of the animals in the beginning in the garden, why couldn't he have the flood and then when it's over, just go poof, they're back?
Thank you.
If y'all are thinking too much about this,
it's always weird to me how God can do all the things that man can't do, but all the things man can do, God has to do through man.
Well, and I mean, yeah, maybe we're thinking about it too hard, but goodness knows, I mean, I'm a bit of a sci-fi fantasy fan, and how many times have we looked and seen like, oh, wow, here's a continuity error, and the Bible's full of them.
God says, I can create all things, but fuck it, if that guy keeps raping that child, I can't do nothing about it, damn!
I thought that was the video. I thought Chris started the video back up. I thought that was him talking.
No, Russ.
That was some good preaching right there.
Thank you.
We need Peterson and Alex Jones here to preach as well.
And so because it actually happened, it's in the collective memory of mankind, which is why every religion, every nationality has some story about the earth being flooded.
Don't.
Obviously, we get the true, accurate story from the Bible, but the natural world bears witness to it, the collective memory of mankind.
So the true and accurate story is the latest one, right?
So in other
someone
words,
noticed.
Guys, what in other words, what he's saying is this is fucking Assassin's Creed, and we're all witnessing the effects of the Animus.
Yes,
Exactly.
this is definitely Assassin's Creed, and
Everyone around him has noticed the smell, and he's like, oh crap, I gotta get out of here.
If this whole
Someone note these time hacks so we can put captions on it.
I do have the question though, Russ. If this is Assassin's Creed and all this is happening through the Animus, you know that the Ezio saga is the least shitty saga in that game series. Which of the Judeo Abrahamic religions would fall into the Ezio ones?
Okay,
what's the least crappy ones?
So if we're going to put all this in the Ezio tradition, so then if you go by the oldest, which would be the Jewish, so they technically would be the Assassin's Creed 1. If you go by
the one nobody liked.
Exactly.
Okay.
Which is why everyone started branching off.
And then Ezio made the series popular, so now we have Christianity as the Ezio trilogy.
Yes.
Okay. The tangents here are wonderful.
Time bears witness to it. And really the only thing that matters to me is that the Bible says it.
At least he admits it.
Yeah.
Knowing this first, that there shall come in the last days scoffers, walking after their own lusts, and saying, where is the promise of his coming? For since the fathers fell asleep, all things continue as they were from the beginning of the creation. For this they willingly are ignorant of, that by the word of God the heavens were of old, and the earth standing out of the water and in the water, whereby the world that then was, being overflowed with water, perished.
This is the thing that Standing for Truth had the argument with me over. Fuck.
He's the new IFB little puppet too, by the way, if you didn't know.
Yeah.
You guys are all content creators. I can't look at a YouTube video anymore without just critiquing the shit out of the editing, but that was normalized. That audio was normalized at about a 3. It should have been about a -6.
Yeah, I agree. When they add the echo effect on, the decibel range actually goes up.
Yep.
Yeah, I normalize everything at 0 or -2, depending on where I'm throwing it.
If you're really wanting
I
to hear what
boost-
you're saying, you want to keep it about a -18 to a -28. Just barely have it there in the background.
The only time I ever boost audio is when someone doesn't know how to use their mic, where I'm responding to them and they're that quiet.
I've had to do that for a few videos. It's
I just recently had to do that for somebody I'm planning on responding to. 10 P's of becoming gay.
It's funny because I have to constantly adjust the volume up for the videos I do, because I go to listen to it, I'm like, holy crap, this is low as hell. What are they doing?
But just render the entire video, then throw it back in your editor, and then do it all as a whole. I've done that before too.
Well, usually what I do, if I absolutely have to, like there have been a lot of people lately where their videos are so quiet and almost nothing but white noise and you can barely hear them, is I will like put the video into gold wave and then use a filter and then use a maximized volume, and that sometimes will do the trick. And
I understand that, Kate.
Like they're in an echoey tunnel or something. It's horrible.
I understand that. We probably all understand that, but I bet we're losing our audience now.
Wow.
Clade is just like, no one cares, guys.
Well, I mean, who knows? Maybe there's someone out there who wants to be a YouTuber and doesn't know how, and they're picking up tips and tricks now.
Yeah, there's a new guy named Purple Rhymes with Orange. You know this guy?
Yes.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Very well.
Oh, you guys already know about him? He came into existence about a week ago.
He didn't come into existence a week ago. He's been commenting on our stuff.
He commented on a couple of my videos.
Yeah,
he's been a prominent fan, but he just now started his shit.
Well, I didn't know he started a channel, but I mean, I've seen him in so many live chats. I've talked to him and stuff. So yeah.
Yeah, you're right, Kate. There are people that are wanting to know this shit.
And they're willingly ignorant of the fact that God flooded the earth, that God created the earth.
What is that background
and they
rumble
take the truth
that
and
they
turn
have
it
in
into a
this
lie.
movie?
They see that the earth was flooded and that there's sediment, or the Christians see at least, that the earth was flooded and there was sediment layers. But they look at that and say, well, this is a period of time.
The Bible's very clear about the order of the flood and how things happened. The Bible teaches a global flood, a flood that covered every hill, every mountain, every animal, every valley.
Don't get
the
into the
entire
order of
earth
things.
was
Genesis
buried
1 and 2 will fuck you.
underwater by the judgment of God.
Animals die all the time. Out here in the woods, they're always dying, but none of them get preserved as fossils.
I mean, if anybody's wrong some of the evidence that is thrown in their face all the time by people like us, especially when we interview them or debate them.
This is a dream come true for Matt Powell. Just soak it in.
That's an argument for incredulity. Kate actually lives near a place that I've been, and millions of fossils get preserved. They're still getting preserved. It's called the La Brea Tar Pits. It's just a few miles north of where Kate lives.
Yeah.
And there are millions of fossilized everything, rabbits, all the way up to the saber tooths that used to roam this earth. There's a certain way that they get preserved. You don't just die on the ground, and that is not going to fossilize. You're correct. But when you jump on the back of a freaking a three-toed sloth that's 3 stories high, and then you die in the tar with it, you're going to get preserved as a fossil.
I mean, I admit this is not my area of expertise, but I've heard scientists say that, like, the whole concept of the missing link is simply because certain generations never got fossilized, that they have to go from one to the other through genetic testing and figure, yeah, there's a gap, but like we can tell that these are related. At least that's as I understand. That's my layman's understanding.
And this is also a big misunderstanding about how fossilization works, period, because the way they see all these different fossils of all these other creatures, they said, oh, well, there should be millions of fossils of everything. It's like, no, there are certain conditions that need to be met in order for there to actually be a fossil.
And yet,
if those conditions aren't met, you're not going to get one.
And yet we still have millions of fossils as a result of the fact that we've got millions of years to work with.
Well, you guys actually, the most truly amazing part of all of this is that we're actually almost a third of the way through the movie.
Yeah.
Ooh, nice.
That's an accomplishment.
We should all just pat ourselves on the back right now.
We'll be done
scattered around by the coyotes or the buzzards or the ants. And so the fact that there are fossils at all is a good indication there was a rapid burial, just like Noah's flood would have done.
No.
Even if there was a rapid burial, it doesn't have to be the flood. And there's tons of other fossilization conditions that have occurred and will occur. Just like the tar
pit. It doesn't matter which model you look at, young Earth or old Earth, the whole entire fossilization process is the same when it comes to rapid burial. That is one of the conditions for fossilization, is it has to be buried rapidly.
Well, actually, I have a question about that. I mean, would an earthquake or a rock slide or something count as quick burial, or am I just off base here?
They can.
No, it's anything that is a rapid amount of anything, whether it be ash, rocks, or even
mud was a good one as well.
Yes.
So the Polystrate fossils we were talking about earlier are a great example, actually.
Yeah, that's a lot of ash and sediment that causes that.
Oh, just making sure. I mean, like, I understand the concept, but it seemed to me like, oh, maybe with the rock slide there's air holes and that won't help or some shit. I don't know, but I guess I'm wrong about that part.
That was an instant. What?
Oh boy.
Holy shit, we're already in part 4.
You couldn't have done a fade into that, dude?
So the reason, of course, like I hear it all the time, is that dragons are in the Bible, but that actually describes dinosaurs.
Or that the environment, the atmosphere at the time was so oxygenated that they could actually breathe fire. Have you heard that one? Oh yeah,
no, that's the first time I've heard that.
Yeah, I've not heard that before.
Spoiler alert, they're going to bring up some stones and artifacts, I guess you can call them, that have been documented to be complete hoaxes, by the way.
Yes, we know.
Yep. And what's funny is that, you know who fact checks them and makes sure that they get that shit right? Oh, right. The other scientists, never the theologians.
The Inca Civilization, they buried their people sitting up, wrapped up in a blanket, and they buried them with stones, various sizes from softball size to beach ball size. These stones have carvings on them. About 500 of the stones have been found to have dinosaurs carved on them.
500 of these stones, at least 500 of them that have been found, have had every known dinosaur on these stones.
Every known dinosaur.
Fun fact about, I'm pretty sure I know what stones they're talking about. It was from this little village community in Mexico. As it turns out, everything that they found buried underground were not actually dinosaurs, but rather creatures from this weird sci-fi comic book that was very popular in the area. And people took those creatures, made clay figures out of them, and then put them in the ground. Like they dated them for a second time. The first time they dated them, it came out to like 15,000 years or whatever. But that ended up there ended up being some errors in the way they tested it. And when they tested it again, it came up to just be something that the villagers did.
Yeah, it's fine. Like, I don't know why it never occurred to me before, but whenever you see those like stone etchings and all of that, they always look very sort of childish, like someone in kindergarten did it. Nobody ever went for realism. What?
Oh, man.
Guzman's in the chat.
Oh boy, Kent Hovind is saved, but Eric isn't. Could it possibly be because they had a falling out?
Who's Guzman?
One of the
There's actually Steven Anderson sermons where he talks tons of shit about Kent Hovind and says he's unsaved for having been divorced and all this other stuff. But anytime that he can use something that anytime the NIFB can use something from Kent Hovind about young Earth creationism or the flood, any of that kind of stuff, they have no problem with putting him in the organization. They have a weird love-hate relationship with Kent Hovind. He's in and out.
It just depends on what he's useful for, like practically every other puppet.
Yeah.
I'm glad the believers have a community where they cannibalize their own, like the atheist community.
I think the dinosaurs got eliminated from the world.
I think that it's been proven that an asteroid did it, and that they weren't completely eliminated. The big ones were. The small ones survived.
So,
I don't think it's been proven that an asteroid did it, though. Is that true? Fairly.
We're talking Cretaceous, the asteroid off the Yucatan Peninsula 65 million years ago.
Yeah, but if that's what he's talking about, then Matt's going to deny that completely because that's several more zeros than his Earth can allow.
Yep.
An asteroid hit this world, hit this
It's
Earth.
happened numerous times.
So an asteroid hit the Earth. Well, why didn't all the other creatures die?
Well, why didn't all the other creatures... You know you've got the same problem for your flood, right, buddy?
It was a massive, instantaneous global cooling, and those animals that had fur-covered skin, the environment favored them, and they became prolific. It's pretty simple. all the large dinosaurs.
So it's true that the evolutionary community does believe that an asteroid hit the Earth and killed off all of the big dinosaurs. What I think is so silly about that is
he's walking next to the fiction section, so he's right at home.
Wow.
Does it look intellectual to walk through a fucking Barnes & Noble with a camera in front of your face?
Barnes & Noble. Okay, yeah, it's not Walden Books. You're right.
It's so amazing that he's doing that while, right next to the children's section.
Kate, did you say Walden Books? You just showed your age.
No, I mean, yeah, most people don't think I'm as old as I am, but still.
We still have big creatures today that were just as big as the dinosaurs.
So the trees were wiped out. Everything, all the big dinosaurs that were eating high above the high stuff couldn't do that no more.
So the asteroid was so close that it literally almost chopped their head off.
That's about as ridiculous as everything else that the Big Bang and evolution teaches. I mean, they just come up with these crazy, wild theories, and it seems like they're almost...
Hey, look, there's equivocation on theory.
What is with that music? That was just like really weird music.
It's too loud, too.
It was obnoxious.
Why does evolution have to necessarily be false for their... You know what? They could do a Hugh Ross. Hugh Ross has it right. He accepts the facts and he still believes. Why can't others do this?
Because Hugh Ross is honest. There's a reason why my video response on Hugh Ross is one of the few videos I've actually done a public apology for in video format.
The guy is on point. He's still a believer, but I really respect him as he's honest, intellectually honest.
Almost just trolling us, trying to figure out how weird they can get, and people will still fall for this stuff. about dinosaurs being beheaded by asteroids, and it's just crazy. I mean, these people have a great imagination.
These people.
The first time I've ever heard someone say beheaded by asteroids. I've never heard that before.
I don't know why it ends up being this nightmarishly stupid, but at the same time, I can kind of understand why, because I grew up in this. This is my childhood right here, which I hate my childhood. I'm just sitting here like, I used to believe all of this shit. I hate myself.
Yeah, I mean, I always thought that like there was a cloud cover and it got too cold, and that's why the dinosaurs died out, because they were all cold-blooded and they didn't have the sun to keep them warm. Is the way I heard it.
When I'm older than most all of you, and when I was growing up in grade school, they taught that we didn't know about the KT layer, we didn't know about iridium, we didn't know about the asteroid off the Yucatan. They taught that the reason the dinosaurs died off was a global ice age, and that had to get revamped.
Well,
we do have a cycling ice age, don't we?
Yes, we do.
Yeah, we're on the ass end of a 10,000-year ice age as we speak.
And that's why the big dinosaurs died off.
A lot of them had to duck for cover, you know, when these asteroids were coming over hitting.
It was one big one.
Like Star Wars, man, like sci-fi, you know.
It was one big one, but like, again, as I've said many times, prehistory is the best guess scenario.
That's not the first time it comes up, though.
Best guess scenario. Oh my god.
And they grayscale it and they put it in slow-mo. I like that.
Yeah, so just like that cut right there.
I do hear about like
Aztec
pottery
or
these
the godless engineer. It's just godless engineer, dude. There's no the. There's no the. I know John personally. There's no the. Jesus fucking Christ.
You know, Indian pottery.
The hat doesn't help his case.
True, but honestly, I think John plays the best dumb hick while also being incredibly smart that I've ever seen.
I've met John personally too, and he doesn't care what his hat says. He wants you to focus on what he's saying.
Yes, exactly, and that's one reason.
I suspect the audience won't be doing that though, because of the hat is the problem.
Yeah,
true.
But again, that's because he doesn't care if you think he's a dumb hick, because the guy's actually really freaking smart. He doesn't care. Yeah. He also can play that part very well when he wants to. I've seen him do it before. Anytime he reads a comment video, he does it in the dumb hick voice, and it's great.
He really is.
That has what it looks like to be dinosaurs on it, but you know what I would say there is that it's coincidental for it. Like those aren't actually dinosaurs; those were just bad drawings that look like dinosaurs to us now.
I have to pause that because I have to say this. At the time, and actually, John actually says this later on. He said that he didn't actually look into the Inca stones whatsoever whenever they were discussing this. So this part was him just pretty much going off of not ever seeing these stones, not ever seeing pictures of them, not even knowing that they exist.
He just brought this. That's the thing, though, is that like when we go into these conversations, we don't go in with a script. These people go into these conversations with a script, and when they go in with a script, they can generally use that script to pull something and just go, okay, they responded to X, Y, and Z. Maybe if I pull F out, and we'll just go with F, and they didn't know about F. I've got them, because they didn't know, because whether or not, because the truth comports directly with what this atheist happens to know. Apparently.
Or what they don't know, really.
That's one of the most important, or one of the most aggravating things about dealing with creationists, though, is that they're science. I don't even want to say they're science fiction, because that puts a stain on science fiction.
So he's talking about the Inca stones right here, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
First thing on Wikipedia says that they are hoaxes. They're proven to be hoaxes, and this is what they call evidence. Science How Stuff Works says it's a hoax. Rational Wiki says it's a hoax. I know that's not the best source.
Nah, Rational Wiki's a really bad source, but we get the point is that it's very easy to find data on them not being real.
Exactly.
Yeah. And the thing is at the time, John had no clue what the hell they were, because he never even bothered to discuss it. He never bothered to even actually look into it. And then whenever he brings them up, it's just like, I have no clue what the hell you're talking about.
Yeah,
dude.
I mean, when it comes to stuff like that, the best people to ask are the experts. You can't just ask like John is a software engineer. His area of expertise is not that. And the fact that that people like Matt think that the truth lives or dies on whether or not somebody whose trade is a software engineer.
It doesn't matter what your occupation is. He's an autodidact, same as Arn Ra, and he can go toe to toe and destroy a flat earther or a young earther, just the same as anyone.
I understand that, but I'm saying that if Matt wants to see what where the truth rests or dies on a certain issue, the best place to go would be somebody who is an expert in that particular field, like Aaron. He would be somebody who I'd go to for literally anything biology related. Almost anything related to biology. I would make sure that he would be one of my primary people to go to, say, hey, no, is this thing correct? If I wanted to grab something like also Cygart, even though Cygart is a theist, if I wanted something biology related, I'd go to Cygart and grab something there. I would not ask a very complicated biology question that I didn't know the answer to. I would not go, for instance, hey Kate, have you put in years of study to this insert random biology thing here? The best I would get is probably a good pun out of that.
Yeah, probably.
And it's
I'd try to say something like biologenic dance. Or something, I don't know.
And it's not even a slight against Kate. Like John not knowing something is not a slight against him. It's a slight against the person who's expecting him to know.
I asked a molecular biology PhD once, who would you side with in two separate sides? One, an autodidact who is laser focused on a specific topic, or someone with a PhD in a field that is not even tangentially related to what he's talking about. And he always went with the autodidact.
It's who you should go to. You go to the person whose expertise lies in the field.
Yes.
Yes, that's where you need to go.
Formal education. I'm not discounting it, kids. Stay in school. Don't do drugs. But still, you know what I'm saying, right?
Yes, I understand. My point is simply ask an expert in that field. You can become an expert in that field without the formal education. It's less likely, but you can do it. Aaron Ra is proof of that. Mm-hmm. It just bothers me when somebody's like, you and me, like this is something we see with people like Standing for Truth. Oh, why don't you and me debate on evolution and we'll see which one is true. Well, hold on, wait a minute. Does the question of evolution really live or die on the hill of me and you having a conversation about it?
Exactly. Right.
Okay, sure.
Well, actually, he's been he was sitting there commenting on one of these videos. I think it was like the first one, and he sat there and pretty much told me or said, "Oh, Frustrated Atheist is still hurting from our last debate," and I was like, "Hurting?
Like, no.
Exactly what?" And so I was like, no, you, and I laid out pretty much what happened throughout the debate. And then he's like, oh, we can debate anytime, brother. And I'm like, thinking in my head, did he just fucking like Hulk Hogan over here on me? We can go anytime, brother.
Brother, you and I, we can go anytime on the theory of evolution.
But I said,
push on, Chris. We're not going to get through this shit. Let's try to break Aaron Ra's record.
Well,
let's try to push on.
We've already broken Aaron Ra's record. We broke it by 44 seconds.
Okay, good.
But so, but he kept going, and finally I sat there and was like, look, I was like, we'll debate evolution whenever you can tell me the difference between evolution and evolutionary theory. Once you can do that, we'll debate evolution.
The answer to that, if you're watching this video, by the way, Standing for Truth, if you want a cheat sheet, one of them is a fact, and the other one explains the facts.
Fucking exactly, Chris. See, how many people don't get that?
Exactly.
No, it's just a theory, Jem. It's just a theory, Jem. It's just a theory.
Yeah, explaining theory versus hypothesis, people don't really care because they get to say just a theory.
Yeah, they take the colloquial theory and they run with it like a freaking moron.
So all of these discoveries of these stones that have been discovered, every single one of these, every different artist was just a bad artist.
Compared to what we have now, obviously they were bad artists, but no, I'm saying that they drew like animals that they saw around them, and
is this the same conversation?
They just
where Matt says that pterodactyls were in the Civil War.
Yes, well, there must be a lot of bad artists.
He brings up that obviously photoshopped image of the fucking pterodactyl standing with those like soldiers. Like, if you look at their feet, you can see the pixelation. It's
all over the world then, since there are all kinds of drawings. And
yes, Russ.
I was just saying that, this whole entire conversation happened all in one take, and John just broke it up into sections and released the videos out in sections. But this, the Inca stone was the same conversation that he was having with the pterodactyls.
Jesus.
And paintings of dinosaurs all over the world. So I guess bad art's been around for a while.
What?
Of course bad art has been around for a while. Look at your Bible.
Those stones depict isn't going to back up your creationist story. Because those stones depict aliens coming down.
So you say that aliens would be perfectly depicted on these stones, but not the dinosaurs.
They clearly show dinosaurs and humans together. Now, to the evolutionist mindset, this is simply impossible because they've already decided dinosaurs, died off 66.2 whatever it is million years ago, whatever number.
Like, that's just more evidence that it's a complete hoax.
He looks like he's glad he just let out a fart.
No, that is
everyone's
the
about
look.
to smell it.
No, that is the look when the log comes out in one piece.
It's the look of relief, or when his cellmate's about to get frisky.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's right. He is inmate number whatever the hell the number is.
Have you ever noticed the only time anyone ever says new atheist or evolutionist, it's always from a believer and it's always as a pejorative?
Yes.
Have you ever noticed that?
Yeah.
Well, and I mean,
do we call ourselves evolutionists ever?
I don't know. No. It's but speaking of that, me and Godless Cranium, I was co-host on his Heathen Hour recently, and we had a guy Tim Whitmarsh or Tim White. I'm bad at pronouncing that, but Tim Whitmarsh, and he actually had an entire section on etymology and in and out group labels in that conversation, which is exactly what this falls under, because we were talking about how atheists used to refer to Christians in the Roman Empire.
Well, and his whole projection about presupposition is like so blatant. No?
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much.
But on the flip side of the coin, we are all presuppositionalists to some extent. Every one of us here.
But when you use a presupposition as the foundation for literally everything, you've given up intellectual honesty.
Again, I think everyone here does that as well.
Well, but I mean, the difference, of course, the real difference is that their position is not malleable to new evidence.
Yeah, exactly. There you go.
Whereas, for instance, ours is. Mine, the universe began with a first cause. I don't know what the first cause is. Find me evidence.
No, back up, Chris. Our first presupposition is that we are not a brain in a vat.
Okay, we can presuppose.
Right?
True, but I'm also a pragmatist. But I'm also a pragmatist, so I don't even have that issue. I can operate with the presupposition that I am in a vat, but I can operate as if that's not the case, even with that presupposition in.
Oh, okay.
Because I'm a pragmatist. The only thing that matters to me is how useful it is.
Let me rephrase it then. Then you have to presuppose that reality is real and that you are really here right now.
I would do some research on the pragmatic view of truth, and you might actually change your mind on that. It's got to be one of the most conflicting realms of philosophy you can look into. No pragmatists agree with each other. It's weird.
We could be some computer code in a failing science lab experiment in a hyper intelligent 14-year-old's basement now.
And we would all be mistakes.
Be careful, they might clip you like they did Raging Atheist and throw that declaring themselves to be fools fucking line right there.
I don't care if they... all I would say is if they want to clip me out of context, then congratulations. They've already done it once before. It's not the first time we've been clipped out of context.
Yeah, we all have. I forgot.
We had the video from Ian Fisher where that already happened. So if they do it again, then all they're doing is adding more ammunition into their dishonest category. I'll just do another video.
I must have missed that entirely.
No, you played a part in my deconstruction of that video.
Yeah, you made a video clip for it.
Yeah,
my memory for that sort of thing is terrible ever since like.
My initial hesitation of coming on this program was that in line with my motto of our channel of building bridges, finding common ground, having fun. We don't. One of our 20 Atheist Edge has 20 commandments, and one of them is no name calling and no attacking the people. And I find it very comforting that I have not done that so far. We have spent all our time attacking only the ideas, so that's really good.
Well, if Matt Powell and his cronies want to try quoting me out of context in their videos, go ahead, because I'm going to blatantly be an opportunist bitch and say it'll get me subscribers.
Right. Yeah. And we actually do need more people to subscribe to Kate, because you've got a lot of dead subs. We need some live subs.
And a few aircraft carriers, too.
Yes. It should not be the case that your channel is 4 times the size of mine and our viewership is almost identical across videos. That should not be the case.
I don't know I've had a lot of people tell me this is the first time they've ever discovered me recently.
Which is weird because you've been on this platform forever.
I think that YouTube doesn't like me and won't promote me for some reason.
You and Thunderfoot and Dark Matter and 43 Alley were the reasons why I got into this.
Yeah, they were the inspirations for a lot of the stuff. For me, it was the newer crowd, Godless Cranium, Holy Kool-Aid, GMS, stuff like that. And then I discovered Dark Matter, Bionic Dance, and 43 Alley after that.
Many of those newer people have exceeded me like that. Just, I mean, some of them have surpassed my subscriber count in nothing flat, and I'm just like, what the hell am I doing wrong here? So
yeah, I don't know
what's the algorithm.
The algorithm. The algorithm is the reason that Mr. Atheist is currently destroying all records.
He went from 10,000 to 25,000 in 6 days.
Fucking he blew up just recently. Just last month he was under 10,000, right? And now he's at 40.
In 6 days he went from 10 to 25,000.
I'm a little jealous, not gonna lie.
Dude,
that's cool.
Yeah. Oh, I wish more power to him.
If it means sacrificing my content, changing, I do what I like. Well, the five of us, we do what we like. If it means sacrificing our content or tailoring, we're not going to tailor. So if we stay stagnant, fuck it. We're going to do what we like.
Well, this is my full-time thing, so I will do a little bit of changing, but I will not sacrifice my content for it. I will modify, but I will not sacrifice.
As of right now, Mr. Atheist is at 41,893.
Holy fucking shit!
And that was the point where Jim decided to backpedal. That was the time where Jim decided to backpedal on his statement.
What did I just say? I don't know. That just went poof.
That's gone. So, who wants me to change? Where are we changing to, guys?
Exactly.
I'll stick 3 zucchinis in my ass. I don't care.
Do the bananas and be a TJ.
What they're up to now. You used to say
whatever it takes, man.
Ago.
I know what they depict. I know that this looks like a giant lizard. You're going to say what that looks like a Tyrannosaurus Rex.
I'm just going to say that picture right there looks really Stranger Danger to me.
Yes. What the hell is that dinosaur doing?
It's that dinosaur.
About erotic asphyxiation. It may not be auto, but it's still.
That's Neolithic. It's no later than 50,000 BCE, and I would guess that it is just an adaptation of someone's imagination. That's all. There's really, if that's all they have to stand on, they're really just grasping at straws.
That
what I'm going
dinosaur
to
is
say
like,
is
hello, my child.
Yeah, I was gonna say that dinosaur is definitely a Catholic priest.
I was about. Damn it, you beat me to it.
Also, if anybody wants to say that's a Tyrannosaurus Rex or whatever, the arms are way too long.
Them
They
some
really
long
are.
arms for a T-Rex.
Well, you see, then evolution took over, and they have small arms now.
You know why T-Rex is so angry? Because he can't jerk. He can't jerk off. It's just like, oh God, I can't jerk off.
In tiny
Sorry.
arms.
I was just gonna say, because if you're happy and you know it, you'd clap your hands.
Absolutely.
Not sure if these are.
I think the fact that there are humans living with dinosaurs all through history is obvious. They're mentioned in the Bible, not the word dinosaur. But I think dinosaurs.
Hold on. Humans have been living with dinosaurs all through history. What happened to them then? Why aren't we doing it?
We are.
Well,
They
no, but I
actually
mean
taste
by
like chicken.
his estimates, but like Brontosaurus Rex doesn't walk down like the street in the middle of San Diego. It doesn't fucking happen.
Okay, look, I'm just
So-
gonna let you know right now, there is a dinosaur that's been talking to children for years, and he sounds a little bit like this.
Look out your window right now and give it 5 to 10 minutes, and you will find a dinosaur. They're
Shouldn't
called
Barney-
fucking birds.
Shouldn't Barney be eating those
The
kids?
magical pleurodon that they found dead on the boat.
Magical Neopleurodon, Charlie.
I think they're going to be talking about Behemoth here in a couple of seconds, and honestly, I can't wait.
Are you okay, Jim?
Who said Charlie?
Magical Neopleurodon, Charlie.
Charlie.
You guys catch that reference? No?
It sounds familiar, but
Oh, that's an obscure reference, and it's got me cracking up.
Charlie the
Yeah.
Unicorn?
Yep.
That is a wonderful
Oh,
series.
Took my kidneys.
Z,
All right, anyway.
Charlie.
They've always lived
That's
with man.
really
They're
good
just
impression.
giant reptiles, giant lizards.
Behold now Behemoth, which I made with thee.
So, I'm just going to say that this is evidence for the religion of Final Fantasyism. No other Final Fantasy fans? Okay.
I know about Final Fantasy.
okay, the only Final
played through
Fantasy I ever played was Dragon Force. So, like
Gigantic swords.
that first one they did before they called it Final Fantasy on the NES. You know what I'm talking about?
Square's game before they decided they were going to go bankrupt?
I guess so. I don't know. I just or Dragon Warrior, not Dragon Force. That's the one.
Okay, yeah. The one that
Yeah.
eventually became like Dragon Quest.
And can someone please explain to me why that's not pronounced job?
Because it's a name.
Still.
It's the oldest book in the entire Bible.
Apparently, scholarship is not settled on that now.
No, I've kind of done a little bit of research on this, and it's older than any of the Torah.
Okay, I would like to see you and Chris Hansen have a conversation on that. That'd be interesting.
All right.
God knew what the objections would be, and he's already covering it right here. I made Behemoth with thee.
He eateth grass as an
Behemoth.
ox. Lo now, his strength is in his loins, and the force is in the navel of his belly. He moveth his tail like a cedar. The
Hey.
sinews of his
He's talking about.
you know what?
Penis
You know what they omitted? They omitted the part where the unicorn, the behemoth prances around like a horse.
Yeah, of course they did.
They're also using euphemisms for penis right here. Like this, the Moses tail here is supposed to be talking about. Obviously, it's dick, and the sinews of his stones is talking about his testicles. The verse before this even reinforces that interpretation.
I knew
It
that
says-
Matt was obsessed with dick.
So this whole behemoth thing and this whole description of a fucking dinosaur here is actually a description of like some creature's dick.
So when Matt
it's
was
kinda-
talking to Kent Hovind, he literally began going, "It's like Behemoth."
Yeah, basically.
stones are wrapped together.
15 more seconds
And
of
Behemoth
pain.
is clearly a dinosaur. If you just look at the sheer size, the proportions, and when it talks
What
about
proportions?
he moves his tail like a cedar.
That's not a
And
tail.
then people say, "Oh, it's an elephant." Have you ever seen an elephant's tail?
Well, I mean,
You-
one
the
thing I want to know
cedars in
is
that
why.
area.
Why is it not possible that they found a fossil and decided that's Behemoth?
No, that's probably not what happened. The Behemoth and Leviathan are the hippopotamus and the Nile alligator, respectively.
Okay.
It's just weird to me when they're like, oh no, he moves his tail like a cedar. That doesn't mean that the tail was the size of a cedar. It means that the tail has a similar motion to the movement of the tree. It's right there in your text. If you want to take the King James Version literally, sure, go right ahead. Be wrong, but go right ahead. And it still doesn't say what the fuck you think it says. It's frustrating. With that said, though, we are at 35 minutes in the movie, and I think that's a good stopping point. We've officially broke Arn Records time in, though it took us about almost 2 hours to get there.
How much do you have left?
Oh, dear Lord. There are 50 minutes and 2 seconds left in this piece of shit.
Jesus Christ.
Well,
all right.
Technically, the rest of the
back.
movie is only 25 minutes long. The last half hour is nothing but like Kent Hovind clips of like him and Bates and shit.
That's
I think
good
there's
enough.
something else at the end there, but
Well, 25 more minutes of pain means a few more weeks of suffering.
Yeah.
You got me hooked. I expect to see an invite.
Had to mute so you guys didn't hear me sneezing. Been doing a lot of that. So with that said, let's go ahead and surmise everybody's final thoughts on this. Bionic Dance, we'll start with you on thoughts on what we've got through so far.
I'm trying really hard to not have any because my brain will try to throttle itself in self-defense. I don't really have a lot to say because honestly, they've been covering a lot of subjects that aren't my forte. I'm not a biologist. I tend to go more after the logic and reason parts that religion gets wrong. So, I've been listening to what you guys are saying and sometimes even learning stuff I didn't know, but it's hard to have thoughts about this beyond really. So.
And with that, Jim, you're next on the list. Where are you?
Evolution by natural selection, allele frequency. The entire concept is not even debatable to me. We don't even address it on our channel. This is I don't want to say it's laughable. I just want to say it's nothing I want to touch on. What we're doing right now is Courtney was just on Objectively Dan. That is a atheist.
That's a Truth
American
Wanted.
Truth Wanted. It is an American atheist podcast down in Austin. She went down there in person. We've got a lot of Richard Carrier clips that are still coming up in the next. We put out every 3 to 4 days, so be looking for us on our channel.
So just avoiding. You're doing the same thing Kate's doing, avoiding thoughts on the subject in self-defense.
No, not even. It's not even worthy of debate.
Yeah, no, I agree. When I was on JMD Apologetics channel, he had a conversation with a bunch of people about evolution, and he was like, "So, what do you think?" He was like, "What do you think of this?" And I'm just like, "I don't know why people still debate it. It's like the Shroud of Turin. Christianity doesn't live or die on the Shroud. Christianity doesn't live or die on evolution. Just fucking accept the reality that you're in. You don't have to give up your God to accept the reality that you find yourself in. You don't. Especially with apologetics moving God so far out into the cosmos that it shouldn't even have any effect on reality at this point. You can keep it. It doesn't hinge on any of this shit."
Thank you.
Sean, what about you?
So what have I taken from the last 15 minutes that we've watched here? We have a lot of deliberate spreading of misinformation. That's the first tack on information control from the Byte model. They are presenting known hoaxes as if they are evidence that dinosaurs existed with humans. They've taken Godless Engineer and Raging Atheist out of context. They are demonizing any sort of outside opinion or facts for their to justify biblical
literalism.
Yes, biblical literalism. Thanks for getting the word there. tend to lose a couple words here and there when I'm talking. And honestly, all I'm seeing here is, and I just got to emphasize it, a huge push for NIFB propaganda that unfortunately is going to brainwash thousands of people into believing that modern science to be a lie. And unfortunately, there's thousands upon thousands of peer-reviewed research papers that both support evolution and the theory of inflation, otherwise known as the Big Bang. And documentaries like this aren't going to hide you from that fact.
I would like to make a quick addendum to that, just because I know that there is a high chance that they're going to take us out of context. Theory of expansion, because inflation refers, if memory serves, because me and S.J. Thomason got in an argument about this. I think inflation was the...
Theory of inflation. I said it wrong. I said expansion.
Yeah, I think for inflation, that was actually like the sudden burst of energy that led to expansion, I think. I could be wrong. I may have just actually screwed us. They're just going to take that part out of context instead. Oops.
The catalyst for that is pure speculation.
Yep. All we know is that T equals 0 does not equal G.
Correct.
Exactly.
Thank you.
And then, last but not least, is Russ.
Well, I mean, to be honest, Sean pretty much summed it up. So the only thing I can take away from this is the magical Pleurodon.
Magical Pleurodon, Charlie.
Yes. That and pretty much life for Jesus. Life for Jesus.
If it gets them, there's, I don't want to mention his name. There's actually a guy who said, no, whatever apologetic gets somebody to Christ. And I'm like, what if the apologetic is a lie? Like,
I'm going to look up Polystrate trees, and I'm gonna relook at Charlie the Unicorn after this.
Do you mind if I shill something very quick, sir?
Sure, go ahead.
So after my Ghost Sex video and Ghost Sex End Time video, which should be out in the next couple of days, I'm jumping back on the Steven Anderson train. Suris already did the bite model examination of Matt Powell and his side of it. I'm going to deep dive into Steven Anderson, the big head. And I'm starting with behavior. I'm not sure if Russ, or Frustrated Atheist, is still going to make his NI history video.
I am. I just now got back into the swing on getting stuff done with videos, and so I will be working on that fairly soon.
Well, as long as we're mentioning things like that, I just checked. I am now 4 subscribers away from 23,000. So if you could,
yeah, definitely go over to Kate's channel and get.
Would it help if I unsubscribe and subscribe again?
not even slightly.
No. Okay, shit.
That
No
would make
shit.
you an agnostic subscriber.
Damn it. All right. Well,
not T or F.
She was almost my very first subscriber ever to any atheist YouTuber ever.
Well, with that, I don't think there's really much else to get into aside from I do know that either next week or the week after that, one of the weeks coming up, we should have Nathaniel Walters coming in as our guest.
Good guy. Love him.
Past that, I don't think there's really much more besides I've lost at least 3 brain cells and I didn't even hit myself with the hammer this time. So with that said,
I think we've all lost brain cells watching this.
I want to thank all the guests for coming in, especially our special guest Jim and our regular guests that have been here since the beginning of this clusterfuck mindfest. And with that said, I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and if you did, please leave a like down below. And with that said, we're gonna have another video on Tuesday. See you guys.